Welcome to the Ohio Housing Finance Agency's how-to video on importing an XML file in DevCo. Hopefully, as I'm going through the information, a lot of your questions will be answered. If your questions are not answered during this session, you can always submit questions to the DevCo Help Desk for assistance. We are using a test account today. And if you have not registered, you will need to use the new user register here link. If you need to register, you can use the How to Register DevCo video, or you can use the section covering access and registration of the Compliance User Guide. Once you're logged in, you'll be on the Programs page. The links that you have available will differ depending on what type of access you have in DevCo. If you have access to any properties in DevCo, you will see the Tenant Income Certification and Owner Certification link. And should click on it now to get to your properties. This property listings page includes all properties that you have registered for and were approved access. These are all listed under the properties assigned to you. As you can see, the 2015 and 2016 certification years automatically populate. And if you need to access older years, you do have to click the property name in the funnel and type in part or all of your property name so that the show all reporting years would no longer be grayed out. And now you can see it's no longer grayed out. I'm not going to click on it now because we're going to 2015. You are now on the property details page. To start the XML upload process, the first steps are to confirm if information in DevCo aligns with your property's recent activities. If this is the first time an XML upload is being done on the property, the bins or building identification numbers and units must be reviewed. On the left side, you'll see the property name. So we have Woodland Run, and then the bins are listed under it. Everything above the name is for navigating to different areas of DevCo. So we'll click on the bin number. This brings us to the building details. Here you will see the units listed in a table with the information on the bedroom sizes, square footage, and so on, as well as the status of if it's occupied or vacant. You can either review the units in this list in the table or on the left side of the page. If the bin is found to be incorrect, you will need to correct this in your compliance software. If a unit is listed incorrectly, this can be corrected in either your compliance software or in DevCo. So an example of that is our units listed here with the leading 0. If you do not have a 0 in your compliance software, you would need to either update all the units on your software or update them all in DevCo so that both match. Next, we will check the utility allowances. We will click back on the property name to go to the main property details page, and then click on the utility allowance button on the right. The utility allowances should be updated anytime there is a new utility allowance at the property, and they should be reviewed anytime you are completing an annual report. So we can see here we have all the utility allowances that were active during 2015. So the 2014 are listed because they were still active through the beginning of March. It is a good idea to open up the utility allowances and check to make sure that the tenant paid total is correct. It is a common issue that the utility allowance amount listed in the XML file differs from what is included in DevCo. And if you are having issues or errors with that, this is where you would correct the information. Or you would potentially have to correct it in your compliance software and do the upload again. So after you've reviewed your utility allowances here, you will click on Return to Property Detail. Once the reviewing of the information is complete, you should be ready to do an upload. So from the Property Details screen that we're on now, click Import Events in the upper right. And you'll click Browse to select your file. I'm going to hold off on clicking Upload for now to explain some of the issues that occur in DevCo. The next screen is time sensitive, so I don't want to be talking while that page is up. Each XML file should contain all events for the property that you need to report for the funding with OFA. The file should contain everything from January 1st of the reporting year to the current date, or if you're making the final upload for the reporting year, the file should contain all events from January 1st to December 31st. The file should also now include rent updates, student updates, composition updates, and these update events will most likely be listed as interim recertifications or IRs in your compliance software. Note that OFA is only concerned with IRs that include information that is required for OFA's funding programs. The best example of this is a rent change that is happening with an interim recertification that's part of Section 8 or another funding type. In the XML file, these IR events will be listed as adjustments with an A. And you will see that as you're doing the upload. In the final steps of the upload process, we will show how to identify the event type in DevCo for these interim or adjustment type events. As a reminder, each time that an upload is completed, it will wipe all current information listed for the reporting year before saving any new information on events. So it's going to be deleting all of the events that you've already had listed in that reporting year. If the upload was successful, you will be prompted to identify the utility allowances used on each event. If errors are found, they will need to be corrected or addressed before the upload is completed. And some common errors include the building ID does not match the current bin, or the unit does not exist in a building. For both of these errors, you will need to correct the impacted units or bins where applicable, either in your compliance software or in DevCo. IC event is not valid for a unit is another issue that we've seen. These errors occur because IC, or initial certification, is not an event type that DevCo recognizes. DevCo currently recognizes move-ins, move-outs, recertifications, transfer in, transfer out, and adjustment. And again, adjustments are further broken down into student updates, composition updates, and rent updates once loaded into DevCo. If an event is not one of these types, it should not be included in the XML file that will be used in DevCo. Lastly, another common issue is if you have an error message about the unit being vacant or occupied. This These errors occur because DevCo is unable to recognize the correct status on the unit. If this occurs, contact the DevCo help desk to resolve the issue. Note that with the release in January of 2016, there were several corrections to the code used for processing XML files, so this error should occur far less than it was in 2015. If you're experiencing other issues and are unsure on how to correct them, please contact the DevCo help desk. After you have made corrections for the errors, you will need to restart the upload or click Try Again. The next screen that we will be on is the utility allowance selection screen. So we're going to click Upload. And you should now identify your utility allowances. If the property is larger than, say, 100 or more units, it is recommended that you skip identifying the utility allowances at this point and do them after the upload is completed. Often with larger properties, the system times out before each unit can be identified with the utility allowance used, and it will not save in DevCo. If you have fewer than 100 units, you can identify your utility allowances now. So I'm going to show a couple examples. Selecting utility allowances. And you can see here we have one of those adjustment or interim recertification events that I mentioned before. And these are how you will show your updates in DevCo, the student, the rent, composition, and so on. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the page and click Save. I will show how you would update the utility allowances after the upload as well. If everything worked as it should, you should now have the successfully saved XML data message at the top of your page. You will want to click Done. At this point, it is recommended to use the export feature to check and make sure that you have everything in DevCo that you should have with the XML file. So that is just under Import Events. And we can see here that we have our tenant events listed. I will explain more how to use the export as we are discussing identifying the update events in DevCo. So at this point, you have a few steps left to do to make sure that you have everything listed in DevCo that you need. If you haven't identified the utility allowances on the units during the upload process, so much like what I did not have all my utility allowances identified on the units. You will need to do that now by clicking on each one of your units on the left. And I did the first two in the file, so I'm going to skip down a few. Select your event. And you should see your head of household member and all the information here. And you're going to go to Utility Allowance and make your choice from the drop-down. And then click Update at the bottom of the page. You will need to go through this on all of your units if you have utility allowances at your property. If you had any update events, which we know that we did, we were definitely seeing that on the second event that was listed, you will need to identify which units you had updates on, and then make sure that they are listed correctly as either a student, a rent, or composition. And this is a new step to the XML upload process. And as a reminder, these are typically listed in the software as interim recertifications. And in the XML file, these are called adjustments. And DevCo will initially list them as composition updates with a CU. And then we're going to be working on this final piece here, making sure that they are updated appropriately to either rent, student, or composition update. So to determine which units we have listed as update, we're going to use the export feature, which from the property details page, click Export Events. And then under the table, you're going to click Export Events again. This will prompt you to open up an Excel file. Sorry. So we'll open up that in Microsoft Excel. And because it is coming across the internet, it is confirming with you that you actually want to open it or not. So we're going to filter by the event type code, which is the column here. So I'm going to apply a filter, and then we're going to select just those that are listed as CU. These were all of the events that were listed in the XML file as adjustments. And now that they're in DevCo, they are called composition updates. So we're going to use this list. I recommend printing it off either to filter it, or you can filter it as I did on the computer so that you have this easily accessible. This list gives you your tenant's name as well as their move-in dates and their event dates, so you can easily find which event needs updated. So I'm going to click on Return to Property Details, and we're going to start going through a few of these. For this example, all of those that have the May 1st date were actually rent updates. So we'll be switching those to rent updates. The example here that is 4/1 is actually a student status update. So we're going to open up our building and then select our first unit, 101. Click on the composition update that's listed. And we're going to select the event type here and change it to rent update. You may need to look at your files or in your compliance software to confirm which of these adjustment or type events are actually rent updates, student updates, and composition updates. We anticipate that the most common update type events will either be student or rent. So we've made our selection up here, and then we're going to click Update. And you can see now where it listed composition update before, it's now listed as rent update. And as I mentioned earlier, where there are error message related to the utility allowances, we can see here that the XML file didn't actually have a utility allowance listed, which this is a test property. But you want to make sure that all of that is correct before you do the XML upload. And so you would repeat this for your other adjustments, and I'm going to also do the one that we know is a student update, the one that has the April event date. And I'm taking the opportunity now, since the utility allowance was not listed, I marked that as well. So we're going to select student update this time and click update. So we can see here that the composition update that I clicked on is now updated to a student update. It is important to identify which update it is, because there are different compliance checks that are run in the background on each event type. OFA recommends using the export feature again one final time to check that all of the events are listed correctly with their update event types. And it is also good to just have a record of what was imported. This concludes our how-to video on completing an XML upload. If you still have questions or concerns, please submit a question to the DevCo help desk, and thank you for watching.